Hi, everybody. It's Derek again. Welcome back to another week of the Millennial Tones podcast. I'm just going to talk about what's been going on for the since last week. We've had the Super Bowl with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, which is very exciting because even though I don't support the NFL, never really have supported the NFL since I was a little kid. Sorry for the phone. It's very exciting for me because it's Philadelphia, and like half my family is from Philadelphia, so that's our home team. So that was when I was interested in football. They were my favorite team, and it was my aunt's favorite team before she passed away. So I know she's up there smiling in heaven because they won. And today's the parade. Then we had the tobacco of the Super Bowl halftime show. I didn't watch it live. I watched it online, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But just think about the week I've been having. So it's been a busy week. So I'm in a lot of, as you guys know, I'm in college. So we're doing a lot of business classes and music classes. They're all interesting, but it gets busy after a while, and there's a lot of stuff to get. It's a lot of technical terms and a lot of stuff. But I'm used to most of it, but it's like making sure that you can remember everything and be correct with what you say is always easier said than done. So it takes a little bit more studying than usual. So other than that, my week has been good. It's been busy, but I've been able to relax for a little bit, which is good. But enough about me. Let's get into the regular programming for the podcast. All right, so let's talk about our daily wavelengths today. So what I've been listening to has been Hurtin' Me by Stefflon Don. That's a new song that's been on the radio. I just started getting back into the radio, so this is one of the first songs I've heard on the radio that I liked. That was a new song for me. So that's Stefflon Don featuring French Montana. I believe there's a music video for it. But it's like a very Caribbean vibe. I'm not sure she's Latino, but I'm not sure she's Dominican or Puerto Rican or anything like that, but it just has a lot of Caribbean vibes to it. And if Caribbean vibes are one of my favorite things ever, it's the mix between Afro, African music, and then reggaeton, and then just that whole Caribbean sound is a amazing sound, and always gets me up to dance. So I love that. Then what else have I been listening to? Chris Brown sent out a song. It's called, hold on, let me make sure that I'm saying that right. Make sure I'm saying this right. Okay. So it's called State of the Union, but he posted it up on his YouTube channel. It's called State of the Union. It's if you guys know Guapale, it's one of her tracks, and then Drake sampled it for his song Closer, for his, if I remember, I'm trying to get everything correct, it's been a while, I think it was on his first album. It was from his first album, if I'm remembering correctly. It's from his first album, but the song is definitely Closer. So it's not the first time that this song has been sampled. But he did something different about it. It's really talking about State of the Union, so he's pretty much talking about the current climate and how we need to all come together and try to figure out this situation and try to understand each other and try to make the world a better place for the kids after us and the generations to come. And kind of fell in line. The reason why, and I think it came at a good time, because from the last episode we were talking about perspectives and how we need to try and listen more and not necessarily just react to things, and just listen to other people's perspectives and try to empathize with it, even if we haven't lived through the experience, just to know that that experience is real and that we shouldn't dismiss it. And if it's a problem, we should all we should be able to fix it. So then let's get into throwbacks. So throwbacks for me, my throwback would be, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this song, because again, I'm old, so I listen to a lot of old school stuff. So the song is called, excuse me, sorry guys. For some reason I have it's a very annoying burp season today. The song's called Forget Me Not. Hold on, let me get the exact artist. Forget Me Not by Patrice Rushen. It's Russian. It's like an old 80s, late 80s, early 90s song. Again, it's called Forget Me Not. It's one of my favorite songs. And then Got to Be Real by Got to Be Real. I always forget the name of this artist, which is weird because I love this song so much. But the song's called Got to Be Real. And that is by Cheryl Lynn. Again, it's like an old 80s, 90s theme song. Another artist I've been listening to is Joe. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Joe, but he's one of my favorite male vocalists. The song that I was listening to is the song that he did with Kelly Rowland. Again, let me get this. Now, this is not a 90s song. This is like a early 2000s song. So it's Joe and Kelly Rowland. It's a love song. So it's pretty much them singing back and forth their perspectives in between the song. And it's called Love and Sex Part 2, because there was a Part 1 where it was just him singing, but now since Kelly's on it, it's a Part 2 of the version. It's a different part because now it's both perspectives in one song. I'm guessing that's how it was framed. But there's a video on Vivo if you guys want to check it out. Kelly Rowland is looking amazing from the thumbnail on there. So if you guys love classic R&B, please go support that video, and just go support R&B artists and new R&B artists and anything you guys want to do. So I guess I'm done with throwbacks. I guess we can just talk about some of the things that are going on, and I'm going to talk about since the Super Bowl just passed. I'm just going to talk about the Super Bowl, and I have some information about what it's like to set up for the Super Bowl. So I guess we can just start talking about that. So let me get into this article real quick. So okay. Highness teams. Okay, so there's an article on TheVerge.com. It's called How the Super Bowl Halftime Show Gets Set Up in Just 6 Minutes. And why it says 6 minutes is because that's literally the amount of time that they have in between commercial breaks for the Super Bowl and the start of the halftime show to set up these things. And it's talking specifically to Patrick Batzel. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. But if you guys want to find this article, again, it's on TheVerge.com and just or you can just search in Google how the Super Bowl halftime show gets set up in 6 minutes. Like I said before, the guy's name is Patrick Batzel, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But he's been a sound engineer for most of America's most watched events in the past few decades. He's sitting alone in the convention halls of NAMM, a trade show for music making industry. The way was not only he was in charge of the audio for the past 19 Super Bowls, excluding this year. He also currently designs and mixes sound for the Grammys, Oscars, and presidential inaugurations. So they go into what they go into. So they go and ask Batzel, how does the planning process begin with the Super Bowl halftime show? So there were two, what I'm quoting for Batzel, that there's two sides to it. He said the first is the site itself, the nuts and bolts starts in June for Super Bowl in February. So they first site out. It's like a first site survey to make it to get a good picture of the space and trying to figure out where they could put trucks and speakers, make sure that they can make the performance the best it can possibly be. Then he goes into the fact that for the whole show and how to put it together, it has to be done in 6 minutes. And he's like, from the end of, and he goes into why it's 6 minutes and says, from the end of the first half of the football game to the beginning of the halftime show is between 6 and 7 minutes. That's how much time you get to build the entire show on the field. Excuse me. Then he goes into more detail and says, then we'll make 2 more trips out there and say, how do we get the wires? We'll drill big holes in the concrete floors and run cable trays where we need them for the Super Bowl, which isn't like a regular game. There are 2 TV trucks for the 2 broadcasters they invited. We have 180 countries in 25 languages, so we had to accommodate 25 announcers broadcasting in Japanese and Russian and German and so on. So we just put any part of the PA system that's already in there, and we had to work with their engineers that work in-house and create a way for me to take control of all their speakers and with a push of the button for the pregame, which is the national anthem, and the halftime show. And then, of course, it goes back to their control for the game itself, the referees, announcements, all that. And then going in, one of the interviewers asked about lip syncing during performances at the halftime show. Again, I just want to make sure I'm getting this man's name right. So Batzel commented and said, no, most of the lead vocals are live. Background vocals are always pre-recorded. Most of the band is pre-recorded. The Rolling Stones was an exception, and then he goes on to say an exception, and the Rolling Stones was an exception in Detroit. And when he said they were exception because he was talking about the background vocals. They refused to do any backing tracks, so that was all live. Was just on. And then he goes into some other artists that what he's talking about for live. He talks about Madonna, was just live vocal and everything else was tracked. And then he talks about Katy Perry, where it was the same thing, but even some of her vocals, the really difficult parts where she was flying, she got really nervous, so she pre-recorded and we switched to that. So then that goes into the performance aspect of it, and when you think about it, it kind of makes sense that that people want um, their best performance ever when they're doing a halftime show. They want to be remembered because you only get one chance to do it. Unlike Beyonce, who has had two chances to come back to the Super Bowl, it's not very likely that she'll have more than one time to perform at a Super Bowl performance. So it's really like you have to make sure that she make a mark on the Super Bowl. So it makes sense that people would make backing tracks and just to make sure that some things are recorded just in case something goes wrong. And I actually, knowing the fact that the lead vocals are live is important and interesting to me because some people would never think that the vocals are actually live, but they really are. And getting on, so I believe this is like a good interview for people that aren't necessarily in the industry to get like a sense of what goes into creating the stage, getting on the mics together, and just all the interworkings of it. And then of course it's interesting for people that are trying to get into the music industry. So I think this will be an interesting article to read. Sorry if I'm stumbling over my words, guys. I'm reading it just as I'm talking about it, so I didn't have a chance to look over it as well as I wanted to, but still look into this. And again, I'm going to give you the place to find it. It's on TheVerge.com, and then you could either go to TheVerge.com, and then this article should pop up since it's a very recent article. Came out on the 2nd of this month of February, and the name of the article is How the Super Bowl Halftime Show Gets Set Up in Just 6 Minutes. So I think that's a good article again. So speaking of the Super Bowl, let's talk about the Super Bowl. So as I talked before, I don't support the NFL. After a whole Kaepernick situation, I felt like I shouldn't. Even though I never really watched football in the first place, it gave me another reason not to necessarily support. But like I said before, I'm happy that the Eagles actually won because it's the first win ever, and now I can rub it in my dad's face that we actually have a Super Bowl ring for Philadelphia now because he's a New York Giants fan and he always likes to talk about how we have 5 Super Bowl rings and so it's always a battle with hearing him when he's watching football talk to his friends about. So that's interesting that now he can't really say too much, but because they actually have a Super Bowl ring now. But since I came in and watched the Super Bowl later, so let's talk about the national anthem singing by Pink, and then talk about the halftime show with Justin Timberlake. Since and America the Beautiful by Leslie Odom Jr. We'll talk about that. Okay, so I watched the video for Leslie Odom Jr. I think that the orchestration was very good. I felt like his voice was well rested. That he had very consistent control of his voice. So overall, I believe that his performance of America the Beautiful was a really good performance. And then I'm a fan of Leslie Odom Jr. anyway. I don't know if you guys ever saw Smash, and then he was in Hamilton as well. He was one of the original members for Hamilton. But before that, he was on a show called Smash, which was like a musical based show about people going to Broadway, and it was pretty much a show about Broadway, making a show centered around like Marilyn Monroe. So that was based on. That's what the show is pretty much based upon. But he was part of that, and Jennifer Hudson was on that show before it was canceled. I think it was canceled. So that's where I first fell in love with his voice. So I'm happy to see that he's getting credit and that he was on such a big thing like the Super Bowl halftime show to showcase his voice. Now let's get to the national anthem. When another person I love so much is Pink. I know that she was sick. I don't know if it was just a cold. I'm just guessing it was probably a cold. But she was sick singing the halftime show. Singing the national anthem. I don't know why I can't talk today. It was a little rocky at some points, I have to admit. But she held it. She was a consummate professional throughout the whole thing. Even though there were some notes that were a little bit shaky and a little bit more raspy than usual, and it seemed like she was straining just a little bit to hit some of the notes that are more comfortable for her to naturally hit. I like the national anthem. Again, it wasn't the best of Pink because, again, she's sick. But I believe that the fact that she's sick and was able to perform, I don't know what is going on today, to perform the way she did, I'm very proud of her. And again, I love her voice anyway. So I was very happy about that. Now, let's go into the actual halftime show. So, again, since I didn't watch it, I watched it later. So, let's get some background for what I'm going to say. So, when Justin Timberlake's name was announced to be the performer for the Super Bowl, at first, from the first thought of it, I said, I don't think this is going to be a good show. Not because I don't love Justin Timberlake's music and haven't loved Justin Timberlake's music. There's reasons why. Alright, so I didn't think that there was enough songs in Justin Timberlake's catalog that would be able to, and he has a good catalog, but I don't feel like it would have been enough to gain enough oomph and have enough performance value to be on the Super Bowl stage. That's just my opinion. Again, you guys can disagree, but that's my opinion. Then the whole debacle with Janet Jackson, and it was kind of interesting to me that he would get another chance again. He would get another chance after that whole debacle where, if you guys don't remember, because you're probably younger or you might not remember, him and Janet performed on the Super Bowl. I think it was about 2004. So he ripped Janet's, one of Janet's, bra pieces off from her outfit, and you could see her, breast on national television. So it was like Janet was blacklisted throughout all these years, and she was never invited back to the show. She didn't win. People even said that she was snubbed at the Grammys because of the whole incident at the Super Bowl show. Now, Janet Jackson is Janet Jackson, so she's fine, and she's out here performing, touring, and having a good time. And then the shows are being sold out, so she's fine. But we all know that Justin has never, at least publicly, apologized to Janet about the whole situation. So it's kind of interesting that he gets another chance to perform, and his image was never hit like it was hit for Janet. So it's kind of like interesting. And then I even said, even though I didn't think that his catalog was enough to build a great performance, because a lot of his hits are like more mid-tempo, slower down. At least the ones that I know that I live for are more slowed down. So I was like, maybe he should bring out NSYNC. And then I read articles coming up, and it said that Janet Jackson and NSYNC are not going to be on there. So then I was definitely in the vein of what I said before, that the show is not going to be interesting. So again, I came in there with those thoughts in my head, trying to see what he could do, what he could bring to the table, because Justin Timberlake is very talented. I'll never take his talent away. He has a good voice and is very charismatic on stage and a good performer. But to me, this was not his best. And he looked, in certain areas, even dancing, he looked very stiff, which was very interesting to see that he was very stiff. The placement of the songs, I feel like the song placement kind of messed it up for him too. Like he did like songs, like slow songs until the end of time. The song that he did with Beyonce, right after he did like Sexy Back, and like it was kind of like a weird placement for the tracks, and I didn't feel like it flowed the way I would have wanted it to flow to make it more entertaining. So since that was discombobulated, and then we have like he was in the stage, and then there's like a little kid on his cell phone the whole time, and he's just looking at Justin Timberlake like, "Who are you? Like, I don't care." So in essence, to me, the Super Bowl performance was like very whacked, like very wacky and very like boring. Like it had like up moments for like 2 seconds, and then it was back to being boring again for me. So unfortunately, I did not like the show. And guess you can say, "Oh, you went in with negativity already, so that's why you didn't like the show." But like, it's my point of view, and so obviously I'm going to feel how I feel. And again, some people liked it and some people didn't, but there was a big majority after the show that said this was a really bad show. So, hate to say it, but it was a bad show, in my opinion, especially if you compare it to the last couple of shows. Like, you've had Beyonce and Bruno Mars on stage together. Then you had Beyonce when she did it by herself, and she brought out Destiny's Child. And even when you look at that, it's like Beyonce, who was the biggest, for this time, was one of the biggest names for female performers, and then she even paid homage to the group that helped her become who she is. So that's another reason why I thought that Justin Timberlake should have brought NSYNC out, because we would have never known who Justin Timberlake was if there was no NSYNC. So it's like, I know you're a solo artist now, but I feel like you should give respect, and the respect due to your fellow bandmates from back in the day to even just perform one song with them. That's just me. Like, I would think that you would want to support them and them support you. Because I'm not sure, like, if I remember correctly, I don't think any of them have beef with each other or anything like that. So I'm on that tip. So that's just me. That's my opinions on the show. I thought it was very lackluster and boring, and I believe it wasn't his best performance I've ever seen of him. So that sucks. But getting on to some more news, like last week we were talking about the Grammys, so I want to get into another article that I have, and it's why can I not talk today? My God. Behind the scenes of the Grammy Sound, and this is another article, and this is on ProudSoundNetwork.com. And the article again is behind the scenes of the Grammy Sound. And again, it's pretty much just talking about how they set up for the Grammys. Okay, so let me just give some bookmarks of this. So let's start from here. For the 60th annual Grammys held in New York City for the first time in 15 years, the Madison Club was turned into Sound Central, holding monitor mixers, Pro Tools rigs, cabling, and all communications hardware for the mega event. Okay. All right, and then it goes into some of the technical terms of what goes into it. So for the Grammys, the mastering clubs 2 code check rooms at opposite ends of the club, each house an Avid Pro Tools rig, and Pro Tools is like a DAW digital a digital audio workspace. It's just like Logic. I don't know if you guys use Logic, but Pro Tools and Logic are Pro Tools is more for audio recording, and Logic is too, but Logic is more user friendly in ways than Pro Tools is, and Pro Tools is usually used a little bit more for live sound. So just to break that down for you guys, if you don't know exactly what Pro Tools is or what the difference between Pro Tools and Logic is. So that's pretty much what it is. Pro Tools is usually more used for live sound, but it can also be used in the studio as well. And Logic can be used for live sound, but it's not as, from what I've seen and what I've been taught in my school at Rowan University, that Pro Tools, like I said before, Pro Tools is used more frequently than Logic will be. So it goes into how many channels of communication will be needed for it. And it talks about next to the left Pro Tools rig where all the hardwired communications for the show, followed next by the wireless communications able to accommodate up to 1,024 channels. The team thankfully used about 60 channels going to 300 destinations. So they broke down, so it's like they put all of these channels, all from 1,024 channels, and brought it all the way down to 60 channels. And they're all all the information is going to 300 destinations, which is like very interesting to think that it went from such a big number to such a small number when you think about the amount of connections that would have been needed to actually sound the Grammys properly. Then it goes into a little bit more of technical stuff. It talks about what it's like to be down in front of the stage of the Grammys, like what happens at truck stops, and then what it's like to be a mixer for the Grammys. So this is another good article to read. So I hope you guys are interested in this. Again, I'm going to give you guys the place where the article was made, and it's called Behind the Scenes of the Grammy Sound. This is on prosoundnetwork.com. And then, of course, you can always search just the title Behind the Scenes of the Grammy Sound on Google, and it should pop up since it's a recent article. Again, I hope you guys are interested in that stuff. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys. I really hope I'm not. Okay, let's get into, what else can we get into today? So, let's talk about, I talked about the Super Bowl. Re-enter some of the Grammy conversations. What else can I talk about today? My brain is going all over the place, guys. So, sorry. So, talked about that. Talked about some music industry news. Alright. So, let me just talk about, just a day in the life of me, I guess. I guess we can go into a little bit more detail about what's been going on in my life, going to school for the music industry. So as I said before, some of the terms are a little bit more a little harder to frame in my brain than usual, because now I'm in sound reinforcement, which is one of the reasons why I cited those two articles, is because now, since I'm learning about it, my teacher, Barb, we call her name is Barbara, but she teaches at Rowan University and Drexel University for the music industry program at both schools. And she's been doing this job for a very long time. So her knowledge is very interesting to talk to. It's very interesting to talk to her about certain things that goes into live sound. So we're learning about live sound now. We're learning how to set up a PA system, like the interworkings of the flow between how sound is created and how sound is transferred from the PA system to the speakers that you see on stage, which makes it possible for everybody to hear it on stage and for singers to hear themselves and hear the band. We're learning about the wireless microphones and the wireless headsets and in-ears that performers use while they're on stage when they're doing performances, especially if they're more if they're dancers, like say Beyonce was on stage, or like a Lady Gaga, Sierra, Chris Brown, Rihanna. Like if their performance was pretty much a whole bunch of dancing and choreography, you put more wireless headphones on them, so they're able to sing to the best of their ability while doing choreography. So that's interesting. So it's kind of hard. So some of the terms and some of the interworkings are hard for me to understand sometimes, because I'm thinking of it in two different ways. I'm thinking of it in a musical way, but for live sound, it's more technical than I'm used to. So it's kind of like I had to switch in between both sides of my brain at one point in time. So again, I'll get used to it because this is something that I'm interested in. So I'm trying to get used to it and try to understand it as best as possible. But I'm happy that Barb makes it more easy for me to understand. So that's always good. Then I have Andrew to performance class. I don't know why I'm talking like a crazy person today and I can't talk. Okay. So I'm in a class called Intro to Performance. And actually performing, me and Andorra, one of our guests, who was on one of our first few episodes. I think it was our fourth episode of this podcast. I can't believe we're at 9 episodes already. Thank you again for the support, guys. I really appreciate it. But we're performing in the class together. We're doing songs. We're singing 2 songs together. We're doing a cover of Billie Jean, and we're doing Location by Khalid. So that's fun. It's fun to actually work and just get used to performing as a group with my classmates that are part of the music industry program. And I actually like that we all get to perform together, because I feel like it gives us a sense of what we're all good at, and then where we can help each other out, and it gives us a little bit more. It gives us a chance to appreciate each other for the work we put in, because we're working as a team, and everybody needs to work to the best of their ability to make everything work. So I really appreciate that class for what it's doing. Those are probably the most interesting classes that I have so far. Yeah, because the other 2 classes are more going into like technical terms of the music industry, which is not as exciting. Like, I have a history of pop music class. It's interesting, but some of the stuff I had courses earlier that talked about most of the stuff that I'm learning. So it's not necessarily that I'm not learning anything, but it's not like I'm learning so much that I didn't already know. So it's interesting and boring sometimes. And then my other class is like survey of record production, and that's just talking about pretty much like how technology has changed over the years, starting from the phonograph and then going up to what we have today, which is like digital consoles and PA systems that are digital instead of analog consoles, and like all that like technical stuff. That class is a little bit more interesting. It's more interesting to me than the history of pop music again, because I feel like I'm learning a lot more, because it goes in. It's talking more about the technology aspect of it than more of the stuff that I've pretty much already had a chance to have learned about. So that's more interesting. And then the fact that Brittany's in the class, so that's literally the only time. When I say literally, the only time I get to see Brittany is this class. I mean it. And it sucks because we had a class this week, but since it was raining and then it's disrespectfully cold, as I say, outside, it was icy, so my teacher was unable to come to class. So that means that me and Brittany were not able to hang out. So it's like the only time we can ever hang out for this semester is one day a week, and it's for an hour. So we have to get like everything that we need to talk about into an hour and a half, where we had to listen to a lecture or take notes. So that's kind of hard to do. But that's pretty much it, guys. It's been a very chill week. Like, it's not been like exciting. It's been not very exciting, unfortunately. Yeah, it's really not been exciting. I don't know why it's not been. It's been very chill, which I'm happy about, but not happy about. It's weird because I hate being stressed out, but like if I'm not stressed out, I feel like I'm not doing anything, which is weird. But anyway, guys, thank you for listening to me mumble or ramble. I hope you guys found something interesting with those articles that I talked about. Give me your opinions on how you felt about the halftime show. If you guys are how you got, and then give me some suggestions on what I should talk about. If you guys have any suggestions, you guys have any songs you guys would want me to listen to, probably give like a review of it on the podcast. If you guys sent it to me, just hit me up on our Instagram at the Millennial Tones Podcast Instagram page. Then if you guys want to DM me personally, my name is DWrita on Instagram. It's D.WRITA. On Instagram, that's my personal page. I'm sure Brittany wouldn't mind you guys contacting her, and if you guys want to tell her stuff so she can tell me your suggestions, I'm sure she wouldn't mind. But if you guys have, like I said, if you guys have any comments, please DM me. I'm always up for suggestions, any critiques you guys can give me on making the show a little bit more interesting or better. I'm always into that. Now for next week, I'm trying to get another interview together. But if that doesn't happen, it's just gonna be me. Hopefully, you guys are still interested in the podcast. Hopefully, I haven't been boring you guys for this episode. But I just want to say thank you again for all the support that I've been having throughout this whole situation. Me and Brittany very appreciate all of your guys' support for what we've been doing for 9 episodes. It's been weird not having Brittany with me, but I'm getting through it. Again, thank you for it, and please comment. And have a nice day, guys. Bye.